Sweater weather.
Yeah, it is cold today.
I woke up this morning at 6:15 for my normal gym workout, and my apartment was pretty warm actually, and I was like, that's weird because I turned off all the heat because I usually turn it off at night to sleep. I like sleeping cold, but I'm on the ground floor, so I think everyone else turned their heat on, and my apartment was like not that cold. And I was getting ready to go to the gym. I walk on the water to go to the gym, and not on the water. That would be like a crazy Jesus thing. Just by the water. And I picked up my phone right before I left, and it was like 32 degrees. I was like, "What?" It was like 70 degrees yesterday, and like
Yeah,
sunny.
yeah,
So I definitely grabbed some pants, but it felt nice. It feels nice. It's nice. It's a nice crisp day. It's blue skies, but cold. I like it, man. I like it.
yeah. I know you people from Florida. You're the worst.
I'm pretty sure we have this conversation every year on the podcast, and you say the
E-
same thing.
Every single year, and I
And we
won't stop.
will until our dying days.
Yeah.
Dude, did you watch any of the Golden State Mavericks game last night?
No, but what happened? I saw a bunch of headlines
It was Clay's first day back at the arena in
in San
where's Golden State
Francisco.
play? Yeah, in San Francisco. So that was like a big deal or whatever. But man, it's crazy. Golden State has this like 11 or 12 man rotation thing that they do where they pull people off the bench and like always keep
Whoa!
people with fresh legs. I felt like I was watching the game on like fast forward. It was insane, but it
Is
was
this a
just awesome.
is this a new NBA meta where it's
It
like
feels
you?
like that's what it felt like. I felt like I was like, what am I watching? It feels like a whole new game. I mean, they were moving so fast because everyone was just fresh the whole game, you know?
Yeah,
Definitely a new meta.
cool. Golden State was one of the teams to first discover the three.
That's true.
Um, I think San Antonio was the first, and then
Mm.
but Golden State was like, we're going all in on this.
Exploited it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just going all in. If it doesn't work, like we are gonna fail spectacularly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Interesting. No, it definitely feels like a new meta. It's like it reminds me of like the hurry up offense in football, where the teams like that's a strategy that was a new meta in football where they get together, they know what they don't have to wait for a play call, and so the defense is like caught off guard because usually in football, you know, you rest and relax in between plays. But it was really, dude, it was just such a fun game, and like just Steph is just so freaking good, man. I mean,
yeah,
it was amazing. It was fun.
awesome.
Um, Cool. So today we're going to talk about, let's do a little update on use action state. We had a fun podcast last week where we were kind of figuring things out and we've gotten some more time to play with it. Um, Very interesting stuff. And then we'll talk about a blog post about dangerously set inner HTML and a Mac thing. Let's start with the Mac thing. You wanted to talk about, what did you upgrade Mac OS?
Yeah, so I upgraded Mac OS and my iPhone to whatever the latest. I think it's like Mac OS 15, iOS 18. Also, I will say that like my computer has been performing a lot better since the
Oh,
upgrade.
wow.
I don't know if that's like just like a placebo thing, but I'm happy.
That's good.
Um, yeah, so one of the reasons I upgraded is that I've been working on this like Open Graph preview tool, and Apple changed the way that preview cards work within the last version of those operating systems and the newest version. The newest version has been out, I don't know, mid September, so it's not that old, 2 months or so. When you send someone a link in the old OS, so iOS 14, it would show kind of like a preview card on Twitter, where you have the OG image up top, and then the title, and then like the host name would be underneath it. So if we sent a link to Build UI, you'd see our OG image. It would have the title of the page, and then it would just say buildui.com on the bottom. And the card it was like very static. Like if you were in light mode, the background was like a very light gray. And if you were in dark mode, the background of the card was a very dark gray, where the text was. So the text is on like a light gray or dark gray, depending what appearance, what light mode or dark mode your operating system is in. And in iOS and Mac OS and the newer versions, they now dynamically adjust that card color based off the OG image. So if you send our OG image is like this dark blue, purple kind of color. So we get this like really nice purple card. when
That's
we send
cool.
it. Yeah, it's really cool. If you send like GitHub's has like a very it has like a almost like a star or like a planet in their OG image. I would say like a star. It's like a purple star, and but it's like a black background for like it's like spacey and black, and they it has a really nice black background of the card. So it's not like they're just picking
Averaging
like
the pixels or something.
yeah. Well, this was a journey I went down. Is I wanted to get a preview of this because I want to build a tool that previews your OG cards across all these different websites and messaging apps. So I was reading about like, okay, how do you like sample an image for its colors? And one of the ways is kind of like the number one thing that comes up is you take the average color of the image. And the way you find the average color of an image is you can use an image resizing tool and resize the image down to 1 pixel by 1 pixel. And
Ah,
that's like a quick little way to
brilliant.
find. Yeah. The
You know,
problem is,
we did this
yeah,
at TED. At TED,
yes,
we wanted blur placeholders for the cover art, and what we did was exactly that: resize it to 1 pixel, and then you basically just blur the pixel. It was something like that.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was it.
You could also like resize to like 10 pixels by 10 pixels.
Right,
Have the browser download that and then like scale it up so you get
right,
like a nice and you can
right.
you can like play with these things and get like a nice
Blur
yeah,
placeholder, right?
blur
You base
placeholder. Yeah.
64 it. You can put it in the
Yes.
so yeah. So it's just data that comes back when you render the
Yes.
page. So it's in the HTML. That's usually what people do for like blur placeholders.
Yes. Blur placeholder is a great example here. You don't, yes, no extra network requests, instantly available, and then you load the image. It's almost like that's what Apple's doing. It feels like that. It feels like they're doing some sort of blur placeholder to get that card looking beautiful. So that's what I tried. I tried resizing to a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image, and of course, it just looks awful. The colors that come out of that are
Like always brown.
yeah, I think you and I would call them like muted. That's a term like
Yeah.
I've heard you say a lot. It's just basically like not saturated.
Right.
You know, you take the average color of an image, and if you look at GitHub's OG image, again, it's like a really bright star, like a bright purple star
Right.
with a black background and space. So if you average those out, you're going to end up somewhere between purple and black, and it's just going to be really ugly.
Right.
In fact, I think when you do the average on GitHub's, you end up with like this weird looking blue color.
Right. And it's not even present in the original image. It's like if you
It's
had a white
exactly
coffee mug
exactly
and a black image, you're going to get a gray, and it
a
doesn't
gray that's
represent the
not
image
there.
at all.
Exactly. Airbnb does something similar. Their OG card today is it's like a campsite in the mountains at
I'm gonna pull
dusk.
up your site. By the way,
Yeah,
for anyone who's listening who hasn't used this, opengraph.ing. I've been using it a lot actually. It's great.
awesome.
Your OG image, by the way, for opengraph.ing is great. Did you use that tool to make it?
No, but I've been using the tool to debug a lot of OG images, and I've been looking at like Vercels are awesome, and man, Tailwinds are amazing. They do custom OG images for every single docs page.
Wow.
So if you pull up like their Flex documentation for
Yep.
just the Flex documentation for the Flex util in Tailwind, they have a custom OG image, and it's
Oh wow. Yeah, no kidding.
and it's not. There's some people that do custom OG images, and they literally are just like insert text into background. Like
Yeah.
theirs is like, oh, they spent time designing it. When I saw that, and I was like, man, these guys don't talk about this stuff. They don't brag about this stuff,
Yeah.
but it's like everything they do looks good.
Yeah.
Everything Steven, Adam, and Robin and John, all those guys, Jordan, they just produce awesome stuff. And
Yeah.
when I saw that OG image, I was like, this is on brand for them. You
Yeah.
know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
Like
Yep.
anyway.
I just touched up our OG images that are auto generated for our blog posts because we were having some like text wrapping issues, and I was looking at their blog posts, and each blog post also has a custom OG image. They put it in the top
Nice.
of their post often, which is pretty cool actually. If you think
Oh, they
about like
reuse the artwork?
they reuse it, yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. So it's kind of a way to get a little bit more mileage out of it because they put a lot of time into it. But if you go to like just a minor release of Tailwind 3.4. They have this gorgeous gradient. They put it on Twitter, but it's nice that it doubles up as their OG
It's an
image.
OG card. Very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, back to Airbnb. Airbnb has
Mm-hmm.
this like this beautiful picture of like it's like almost like a campsite,
Yep, I see
and
it.
there's like a lot of browns, but the campsite is there's a lot of dirt because it's on like the mountains and the hill. So there's a lot of browns, but like the campsite is like a tent that's really well lit, so it's yellow and has like a soft glow to it. When you average that, you end up with some weird brown. It looks like poop. I mean, it's just you're just like so. It's funny because when you send it on iMessage, it doesn't come out to a bad looking brown. It comes out to like this beautiful dark brown. Like it's brown, but it doesn't look bad. It's like this nice
Interesting.
dark brown. So anyway, averaging didn't work. So then I was going back and forth with like ChatGPT here, and it recommended you take the average of all the pixels in the image. So you don't resize it. You loop over all the pixels and take the average. And then you weight different colors in the pixel differently. So you weight greens a little higher than you weight reds and blues. And they have a weight for each red, green, and blue, but green gets the biggest boost. And this is called a luminosity-weighted
Mm-hmm.
average. And this is because a human eye perceives greens to be a bit brighter. So I thought this was really cool that you could
That is
just,
cool.
and I was like, this is it. This is what Apple's doing. This is exactly something Apple would do. I tried that, ended up with awful looking colors. So, so the adjustment wasn't enough. And then like ChatGPT was like, well, you can change the weights to get a better, like tweak the weights, get a better color. But I was asking it, like, I didn't want to just like hard code weights. So I was asking it, what weight should I use? And it came back with like different color profiles, like have different set weights. And there's one, I forget the name, but there's one weight of colors that has that green a little higher. That's basically like the standard that a lot of people use when trying to find average color. So
And how'd that
yeah,
work?
it did not. I mean, it did not. It was just
Ah.
still bad, muddy,
So you tried some
muted.
different profiles of different weights, and
Yeah,
they were
and
still kind of too averaged.
couldn't get any of them to click. Um, then I found some more. Again, I say ChatGPT. Um, Found some more algorithms. By the way, this is just side note. I think this is like the best way to use these AI coding tools
Mm-hmm.
when you want to do something and you don't just want it to like spit out, 25 lines of React code that you copy and
Mm-hmm.
paste in your app, but more like you want to understand how to find the average color from an image, and you're having a discussion with it. It's telling you, oh, you can try this mechanism. And then I tell it like, okay, I'm writing in TypeScript with Node.js. And also too, like by default, it was doing return types, which I hate. I just want those to be inferred. So I would say like, don't do return types. And we were having a conversation and it was showing me code samples in code that like I found pleasant to look at, and it was explaining things to me and explaining these different things. I think this is one of the most amazing uses of AI. It cut down, this would have taken me like weeks to do, from
Right.
Googling
Right.
and finding Stack Overflows, and it just cut it down to like 2 hours in the afternoon,
That's really
a
cool.
Saturday afternoon where I was just talking with it. So yeah.
I like the idea of it using the code that you understand as a way to explain it too, even if you're not copying and pasting the code.
Yes. Yeah. It would give me back, just it would start giving me back like Node.js, and I would say like I'm writing in TypeScript. Don't do the return types. I'm using these libraries, like, because it would just I use Sharp a lot for anything image manipulation based, and it would just sometimes give back like image magic or graphics magic, and I was like, no, just use Sharp, and it remembers.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that it recommended, or where we ended up, was you find the vibrant color. So this is really interesting. You loop over all the pixels in an image, and you have a threshold for saturation. So I was using HSV color
Mm-hmm.
profile, similar to HSL, where
Mm-hmm.
the in that it's a way to represent a color with three numbers, and the S stands for saturation, in HSV, the saturation is always going to be between 0 and 100. So white would be unsaturated. And I guess would white be unsaturated or just like a gray? Gray would be unsaturated.
Yeah.
So like a very soft gray would be unsaturated. And then like a full vibrant color would have 100% saturation.
Yeah. The whole full grayscale is 0% saturation.
Zero. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. HSV is really cool because you can like look at it on a card and you can visualize it like when the saturation is all the way to the right, that's where all the bold vibrant colors are, and you know that's 100, and then the grays are all the way on the left,
Right.
and that's where the unsaturated colors are.
Desaturated, right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can get a good feel when you look at something, you're like, oh, I know that color is like at 50% saturation because it's right in the middle. So it's an awesome way to represent colors. Versus like RGB, you can't really get a feel for that with these like three
I think when I remember learning about these, the idea for having different color scales was to represent color in a way that's more natural to humans.
Yes, HSV. This was something ChatGPT
Jibbity.
taught me. Yeah, Jibbity. Thank you. HSV is the one that's most popular for the easiest for humans to understand. So I was like, great. Since I'm new at all this, we're going to keep everything in HSV today.
Yeah, and, that's cool.
Yeah,
I've done HSL too, which is hue, saturation, and lightness, and I think lightness and vibrance are two similar measures of that kind of like the vibrance or lightness of a color.
Lightness, yeah. It kept telling me that V was lightness.
Okay,
but it doesn't stand for lightness. It stands for something with a V. I think value.
Okay,
I think value
got
is
you.
the
oh,
thing.
value. I see value.
Yeah. But it kept saying, I was like, what is value? And it kept telling me that this is.
But HSV and HSL are different, right?
Yes, they are different.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are two ways to represent a color. But that I want to focus on that what we're trying now is we're trying to find the most vibrant color in the image. And I want to focus on that S. That's in both HSL
so you're
and HSV.
you're on blue in the color picker and Chrome Dev Tools. The left side is all black and white. It's the grayscale, and then if you move to the right, you're increasing saturation, but it's all blue. It's all the same hue, and you're getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And then you can rotate the hue, but the brightness of the different parts of the rectangle stay the same.
Yes, correct. Yep. So you're always dealing with a blue.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that you find the most vibrant color in an image is you loop over all the pixels, and you have some cutoff for saturation, and you have some floor. You have some floor, not for saturation, for that V value.
Okay,
which is you can think of it the brightness of an image. So really whites are really bright, and blacks are really dark.
Gotcha.
And you say to pick the most vibrant.
Okay, so it's the y-axis in the Chrome Dev Tools.
Exactly, it's a y-axis. Yep. To pick the most vibrant color, you want to have some threshold for brightness. We'll say 50%. So everything that has a V over 50. V is also represented from 0 to 100. So everything that has a V over 50, you loop over all those, filter out all the ones that are under 50, and then basically reduce or find down to 1 pixel that has the highest saturation. So of everything that has a V over 50.
Okay. So let me say it back and see if I understand. Get all the pixels, throw away everything that is in the bottom half of that rectangle.
Yep.
Now you're left with a subset of the pixels of the image. And then you could scatter plot these basically because now you've eliminated one of the dimension. You don't care about the hue. And then you just find which ones are farthest to the right.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
Beautifully said. And those ones that are those are the furthest to the right, are your most saturated pixels. And
cool.
The idea is those should be the most vibrant pixels in the image. So if you're going to find a vibrant
because
color,
you wouldn't want something that's in the right but in the lower half because it's going to be too dark.
A black, you could have a full black and that would have full saturation, but you wouldn't want to say that's a vibrant color.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Also too, like tools like Sharp, they make it. Imagine you have an array and you're looping over an array. Sharp makes it that easy to like loop over all the pixels in an image. You can get back all the
Really?
pixels, and you just say, I want to loop over them all. There's like a little bit, you have an array of binary data, and like every 4 values are a pixel. So it's like red, green, blue, alpha. So your loop is like, looping over an array and I plus 4 for every iteration. Different images might not have that alpha value, but for the most part, what I was dealing with, it was just PNGs with 4 pixel, 4 data points for each pixel: red, green, blue, and alpha.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, and also it's great. Like you have the Chat GPT is just telling you how to do this using the tools you
That is
like.
awesome.
Yeah, so I did that, and it was cool. Like you do actually start to see vibrant colors come out of images, but they're not what Apple's doing.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was like, okay, maybe they're getting the vibrant color and then like adjusting it. So they get the vibrant color, but then they darken it because they're always placing like white text over it. So like I tried like darkening it, but like some colors, like Stripe has this beautiful OG card. It's like kind of like a rainbow splash of red, blue, and yellow. Yeah, just pull up Stripe.
I'm gonna open graphing it. We need to come up with a verb for this. Cool. Yep. Nice.
Yeah, they've got some pink. So when you average
Nice.
this, you just end up with like this
Yeah.
muddy gray.
Yep.
The vibrant color here is yellow. It's when you do that, the algorithm we just talked about, you end up with a yellow. But then
I was
when
going
you
to say, by the way, earlier when you mentioned that humans perceive green more brightly than other hues of the same level of brightness. I remember learning that from Refactoring UI when they talked about yellow, because it was the same thing. If you had
Interesting.
like a yellow that was the same level of saturation and either lightness or value or some measure of brightness, yellows look brighter, greens look brighter. I think the purples and blues look darker.
I have a question for you. Does
And
that
that's
like
built into also built into the contrast ratios that tell you whether or not text is legible, both for the purpose of scoring it, but also just literally for the purpose of making the text look easier to read.
it'll factor in what the background color is?
Yeah, both of it.
Cool.
But the same. You can't just rotate the hue on a color and get the same readability score.
Because you could rotate from a purple to a yellow, and that would change
Exactly.
the
And you
perceived
just try.
brightness.
And if you just tried it, you'd be like, yeah, I can't read this, but the purple one is just fine. So think about
Interesting.
it. Think
Cool.
about every time you've done a yellow button, or
Yeah,
an
immediately
orange
undo
button.
it because it looks awful.
Exactly. And that's why like Amazon's yellow button has like black text, but maybe a blue button with the same level of brightness and saturation. White would be fine. So, I ran into this as well when I was working on our favicon for Build UI. We had like a dark and light mode favicons, because our favicon, our normal logo, is on a dark background, and it looks great if the browser's dark, but if your system's in light mode, then it was hard to see. Apple detects that and adds a black background if you're in light mode, but your favicon picture is too light.
Whoa. Okay. Interesting.
Um,
What does
so
that
it
look
forces
like? Does that?
it looks like it looks terrible, because because they're doing it automatically. And so imagine you're like Vercel and you're like a black triangle, right? If you just did a black triangle, it would look good in light mode. But if you go to dark mode, then I think they even do it for Vercel. I just pulled it up in Safari, and they have it's like a white background that they add. They just make the background white, and so you see white, and then you see like a black circle, and then like a white triangle. So they do that because they're basically imposing minimum contrast requirements so that people can actually see your freaking thing. Because if you had a white, if
Yep.
you've had a black triangle your whole life, and then dark mode comes out, and now no one can see your favicon. So a lot of people, when I was working on this, a lot of people the ideal is to just have something that works in both, and so you don't have to change it, which is
Yeah.
actually where I ended up. I had a nice, our designer actually gave us nice light and dark mode favicons for both browsers, but I could not get reliable dark and light mode favicons working across Chrome and Safari for the life of me. They just, Safari really holds on to favicons like it's like the end of the world, and like there's nothing you can do about it. They just like to cache them so they show up in like the bookmarks bar and your homepage and stuff. So even though I got it working sometimes, there would just be times where like, you load it, you change your system, and then it like has the old one. It looks terrible.
Uh,
So I went on
inter-
this journey of finding a color that Safari would let me use for both. And I remember doing a lot of the stuff you're talking about where I was basically tweaking it in Figma, but I had to find something that was had enough contrast with both the dark mode Chrome and the light mode Chrome of both browsers that it would respect it and it wouldn't add like a white background or a black background. And it was like infuriating. I remember it just took me so long to figure this out. But I was happy with the result. Yeah, so it's a similar thing. They definitely have a lot of tech within the operating systems that make sure user generated text is accessible.
Interesting. You know, I was gonna say like maybe it's okay if they cache it because like how often do people change their system? Like, you know what I mean? I'll flip mine for like debugging purposes, but other than that, like I never change it. But in Mac OS, there is a setting that's basically your system light mode, dark mode is determined by the time of the day. So
Right.
so
Right.
so
There you
it
go.
shifts. So
Yeah.
also I mean, if you use that, you're a psychopath. I mean, that's all. But it feels weird that that would be an OS level option, and then there would be such high caching.
Yes.
You know,
Like there's just like it was just like a weird. There's like a weird meta tags that you need for this to work. You need to have like I don't know. It was just hard. I'm seeing what they do. Yeah. See, theirs is a black apple on a white circle background. So they don't change it. I was like, if they don't have dark and light mode icons, then maybe it's just we're just not ready for it yet. You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a very Apple thing. Well, we don't have this, so we're not going to worry
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. I just went to Vercel and went to light mode, and the white background disappears. So they are in fact adding it themselves because they determined that the black circle is too dark, and they're assuming that like you need to see that, and so they just added a white background. So
Wow,
it's a tough one.
interesting.
It's a tough one to figure out. The best is to just find a single
Find a
I
single.
meant to do a whole tweet about this when I did this last year sometime because I did find out a lot of cool stuff and ways to debug it. But the takeaway is one fave icon that looks great in both, and you can figure it out. It might take some time, but don't try to do light mode and dark mode fave icons. It just didn't seem to work for me.
Nice.
Cool. So where are we in your story? So you try this thing, you find the luminosity,
Find the
the vibrant colors.
find the vibrant color, and then it was just like you had to darken the color because the striped vibrant color would be a very saturated and very bright yellow.
And you want it to be like a backdrop.
You want it to be a background because there's going to be text placed over it. Exactly what you
Right.
were saying with the buttons. You want
Right.
text placed over it.
Right.
And that's why the greens and the yellows don't look good.
Right.
So I was trying to darken it, but if I would darken it down to what Apple would do, like if I would just look, I would message myself a link to stripe.com. I would see the input OG image and the output of what Apple was doing. And I could see the adjustment they were doing. And the adjustment, if I was just looking at like pure darkening adjustment, and they weren't always just darkening. Something like Airbnb, the vibrant color would get really dark, where Stripe, it would still have a lot of saturation as well as a lot of brightness. Where Airbnb Apple would cut out all the saturation and all the brightness. So it wasn't like this you know how we were imagining
You
it as a
couldn't just fit
graph?
the data like you were
Yeah,
trying to do
exactly.
data fitting and
Exactly.
economics. We call it fitting the data fitting,
Dude,
but there
you
wasn't a constant relationship
well
between the most vibrant color
there
and
is.
the
And then you go to another website and message it, and it just completely does not fit the overfitting that you had just performed. So, and yeah, I was at this point, like I was like getting like frustrated. It's like I'm never gonna figure this out. Like I found some posts online where people are talking about what Apple did, and it's like they're like it was basically like Apple isn't going to say how they're calculating this, but just pick a really nice OG image and they'll take care of the rest. And I'm like, no, I want to know what they're doing. um, Dude, I was at a point where I was like, I'm gonna make an app that makes takes all the Tailwind CSS colors, builds OG images for every one of them, messages them to myself, and then samples the color,
ah.
and then I'm gonna fit along that scale. So if
Find the
you
closest, find the most vibrant color, match it to the nearest tailwind color, and then choose the key, the value
the
of your
manual mapping
map
that I
lookup.
just
Yeah.
did. So and then like I was, I get these ideas, and I'm just like, I know that like you have to walk away from the computer.
Maybe that's time. Maybe just try V0 and just like prompt it. I saw this prompt, this Google Slides app thing on V0 on Twitter the other day, and it was pretty cool walking through the guys. I hadn't opened it in a while, but he had the whole chat history there, so you could click through all like 6 versions of the app. And he was just talking to it. He's like, "Oh, there's a bug there. Fix it. Didn't do any code." So maybe next time you have a fun idea for a side project, and you're like, "Do I really want to run like create whatever app? Just like V0 it?"
I was more this idea of like sending myself 1,000 text messages. And there's like
Right.
15 Tailwind colors, and then each of them have what, 11 or
10,
12?
yeah, 11, 12
Because they
shades or
have
something.
50 and 950, and then
Right.
1 through 9. Yeah, 11. Um, I was like, am I really going to message myself all this? And then I was like, I don't even know, like, these are like web colors? Are they like, is there enough saturation in all
Right.
these? It's like they're big enough samples. So anyway, I just walked away from the computer.
That's funny.
That's as far as I got. I had a little more. That's as much code that I wrote and playing that I did. ChatGPT to give me a few more ideas where you can do like k-means clustering, which I don't
Mm.
know if I'm going to do this, but the idea is you take all the colors in an image, all the pixel values in an image, give them to this algorithm called k-means clustering, and that's going to group all the similar colors. So it basically tries to put all the
Right.
colors
That's what I
into.
that's what I was thinking when you were first. That's where my mind went when you first said iterate over all the pixels and average them. I was thinking maybe you could group them
Yes,
into some ranges, and that way, if you had a white mug on a black background, instead of
you
just
have two
averaging all
groups.
the pixels, you have 2 groups
Yep.
exactly,
And then you can pick one
and then
from
you
the
can pick
groups,
one.
maybe
Right.
based on vibrance
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
And there are I mean, also one of the amazing things about JavaScript is there are libraries for everything. So if you
Mm-hmm.
want a k-means cluster,
That's cool.
a group of pixels, like you just npm install it. So
That's
it's
awesome.
yeah. I didn't get that far.
That'd be interesting to try. You know what else
Yes.
would be interesting to try? Because something else reminded me of this. When I made my Apple Music clone with like Framer Motion, I noticed for the first time because there's so many cool little details in the actual music app on iPhone. The background of like the playing screen is basically a sampling of the cover art of the album you're playing, and it's not an average. It's actually a gradient that's animated. So it looks really cool. The example I used in my demo was like Doja Cat, and it has a really cool album art, and there's like blues and purples and stuff. But the background is first I thought it was blurred of the album art, but she's like sitting in the middle, and like it doesn't. She's not anywhere in there, so it's just color. But it's also a gradient that's moving. So I just had a thought that was like, I wonder if you could do k-means, get like the top 3 or 4 groups, and then just get the average pixel from each group, and then make a gradient blur out of it. That could look cool.
Mm.
Um, I'm guessing. Do you know I'd be curious. I'm gonna have to check out what Apple's doing on iMessage because I haven't seen it yet. But is it a solid color or is it a gradient?
It's a solid color.
Got you.
Um,
The gradient, the k-means cluster into a gradient could be very cool for like our player on Build UI.
yeah.
For like the head, like the hero, having it be like a blurred background of whatever the art is. That's a really neat idea. I'm gonna have to play with that.
It's pretty cool too. Like just outside of this open graph image stuff, like you can take a picture of something like a sunset or whatever, and then extract like a color palette from it. And there's tools
Right.
that like do this sort of thing, but it's
Right.
like pretty cool to think
To
about
understand. Yeah.
how all this stuff works under
Yep.
the hood. And yeah, even though I don't understand k-means clustering, but
But you can think about it, right? If I were to ask you as a person how
yes,
to pick out the
what is it
colors,
doing?
oh, there's a big sun there. There's about this on average.
Yep. Very, very cool.
That's a fun little way to learn about k-means clustering too. You could make an app that you upload an image to, and then run the library on it. And then you could also send the image to Llama Vision and see what it does. I wonder if it could read it, and I wonder what it would choose.
Oh, interesting.
You can
Yeah,
even send the image to Llama Vision and ask for like a nice background based on the image that
based
would
on
look
the
good
image.
with light or dark text that still represents the image. And I'd be curious to see what it did.
Man, this was like another kind of like dead end freak out that I had. Not freak out, but like
What
when
am
I
I
was
doing with my life?
yeah, well, I mean, when you're on like your eighth
Yeah.
color averaging algorithm and you're just like, this is adding no value. Like,
Dude,
this is just...
these are those nerdy rabbit holes. I know I've been there so many times.
I was kept asking, you kept like, you keep prompting ChatGPT and you're like, it's not this average. Like, is there anything else that could be used to find? And then it's telling you about like, well, there's machine learning algorithms. I think k-means clustering does fall under this machine learning thing. But then I had this thing where I was like, oh man, this might be like some AI model.
Right. And then it's a black box.
Where there's predetermined weights that they train.
Right.
And then it's just it's just a black
Right.
box. The only way to
Right.
reverse engineer it would be to take every single image, change its like pixels, and then like basically
Right.
it's a black box. So you get
It's a
input
black
and
box.
output,
It could be
input and
it could be
output.
trained on hand selected examples from designers.
Yeah.
And then it could just be doing a good job. It could just use the samples and say, oh, the reason they went with this one is, whatever it is, right?
So then one thing you can do is you can copy a link and paste it into iMessage, and the card doesn't immediately show up. They show a card and they have a spinner, the Apple spinner over it, and then it pops up and then you can send it. So like that's like they give you like almost like a preview of the card, like Twitter does, where you just put it, paste it into the text box. And I was like, that spinner is taking way too long. Like it already made the network request, and I was like, oh my god, it's a machine learning
That's funny.
like algorithm that's like running right now. Anyway, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to stop.
So what are you shipping for that, or you don't have anything yet?
I don't have anything yet. I should share this. You just gave me the idea that I should share this, but I made a page that has all these algorithms that I just talked about. It has the input image, and then it has all these algorithms that just output a square with a solid color.
Nice.
So it's like the one average, then luminosity average,
Nice.
and vibrant. And then in the last column, it's basically the target, which is me using the color picker tool and finding the actual color that's showing up in iMessage. And then I do this for like 7 or 8 different cards. So I have like Build UI's card, Airbnb's card, like a solid pink card. Pinks were really weird. Just whatever they were doing with pinks, they like desaturate them. Everything else gets a little more saturated, but not pinks. They desaturate. Yeah. Rabbit hole. But it was cool to see like the input, all the algorithms, and then the final column, like target output, what I'm trying to hit. And
That's awesome.
It's frustrating because like I could get an algorithm that got 7 of the 8 cards, but that last card was just not a little
Way
bit
off.
off. So far off. And then I was like, man, I was like, do I need to rotate the hues? Do I need to
Right.
decide? And that, I just stopped. So I think,
That could be a good page to share. Could also be a good blog post,
yes,
just to share the explorations. But a little interactive page could be really cool. Um,
I really wanted to get it right, that you don't want to share anything till you have it. But I think
yeah.
just sharing it would be fun. I mean, I'm having a blast telling this
Yeah.
story, and
Exactly.
I don't have anything
Exactly.
working. So yeah, that's where I got kind of a dead end. I do think that previewing iMessage is really valuable just for an Open Graph tool
Uh
because
huh.
iMessage uses like really small fonts. It's not
Uh
like
huh.
Facebook and Twitter where they blow
You're
the
not going to see
card.
400 pixels worth of
Exactly.
whatever.
You see about, I think it's like 192 to 250 pixels.
Interesting.
They also honor the aspect ratio of the original image. So if you do a square
Oh.
image, it comes up almost like a tower because you have the square on top and then the text on the bottom. So
Hmm.
it's very vertical, which actually it looks really nice in
Mm-hmm. When you're on
iMessage.
a phone, when you're on a device like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and even just like iMessage on your computer, it looks
Mm.
nice getting like
Mm.
a tower card. Where on Twitter that doesn't work because Twitter,
Right.
they the content
Crop
fills
it.
up that
They'll
whole
crop
middle
it.
area. They'll crop
Right.
it. Yep. So I do think it's valuable to get the preview. So I might just ship something that's the preview using the uh, Mac OS 14 and iOS 17 preview cards, which are just it's either light gray or dark gray based on light mode or dark mode.
Cool.
Um,
Ship
yeah,
it. I
yeah.
love it. That was a great story. The last thing I'll say, just because it reminded me, when you said rotate the hue, there was also a chapter in this about in refactoring UI about this, where when you are creating a scale of color, let's say the tailwind blues, you want a different blue, so you want to, but you want like 100 and 900 so that your developers can just like be as productive as normal. The way you do it is, you kind of find like the middle one and then you just start adding squares on either side. You kind of like get the darkest, lightest in the middle, and then you just like go two by two and like get the average of those two, like just by eye. And they talk about doing it by eye, and they've picked all the colors by eye, by hand, because there's no formula to do it, and it has to do with all of this issues of luminosity and human vision. But one of the things they talk about is when you, I'm trying to remember if it was brighten, well, either brighten or darken. So if you were on the HSL selector in Chrome, and let's say you throw in your blue and you want one shade darker, like let's say on Build UI, we have an accent color. It's like our purple brand color. I use it in like my demos. We use it for buttons. And I wanted like an accent lighter. I didn't go through the whole exercise of making 900 shades. I just wanted one, but I also wanted an accent light, so for the hover state.
Mhm.
So you're in HSL. We have the hue selected, and then you would think I could just bump up the lightness a little bit. So you could bump up the lightness because that's what lightness represents. You just want it to be a little bit lighter. Um, if you do that too much, um, the color doesn't look the same as the original, even though the hue hasn't changed. And what you need to do is rotate the hue. So you normally when you, I guess rotating the hue is kind of like, I don't know what it really means to go up or down because it's just changing it. But basically, like I've done this so many times in the dev tools, you bump up the brightness by like 10, and then I go back to hue and I like up, and it looks more like the original purple, like in the spirit of the color. It looks like it's the
Interesting.
same family. But if you keep it, you would think you could keep it the same hue and get a whole scale from one hue, but you can't.
Well, that might be one of my problems is that
It
in
might
this thing
be. I
I'm working with a single hue. By the way, the term rotate the hue comes from the saturation is uh, saturation brightness or like 0 to 100.
Uh huh.
And when you hit 0 is like black,
Uh huh.
100 is white.
Uh huh.
You can't loop around that.
Ah.
So like you can't go from like pure white to
Right.
pure black. It's just like it's two
Right.
ends of a spectrum.
Right.
But with
It's a
hue,
range.
it's a range, two ends of a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
With hue is a circle of all the colors. So you can go from I don't know. I
That's
know
why
nothing about
is it
color.
degrees? No.
It's degrees. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can go from 360 to 0 and it's just a 1 degree change. You
Right.
can go from 0 to 360. So
Right.
it's like a color. Have you ever seen a color ring?
Yes. Yes.
The
yes,
hue
yes.
is like a slight a point on that color ring.
Right.
So it's not a
Right. Right.
spectrum like
Right.
black and white. It's a ring, which is again,
Interesting. It'd be good to learn about some of this stuff. But yeah, when you like the theory of it, I've always been interested in that sort of thing. But if you pull up the HSL selector in DevTools, they put the color on a range that has a beginning and an end, but you'll notice the left side is red and the right side is red too. So that's to your point. You can unfurl the circle, but it's still the case that you can wrap around.
it was really
So
cool too for like a visual because I was imagining like it's like a dial that you're twisting, you know?
yep, 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 yep. H goes to 360. How did I not know this?
Because
H goes all the way.
you haven't been talking to Chat GPT.
I feel like I use this so many times. Like, I mean, I knew it was in degrees, but I've never put that two and two together. Well, today I learned.
Nice.
So I wonder if the hue value of like 223, which is like this blue, does that always? Oh, it's the same for HSL, HWB, 223. I wonder if that I wonder what that actually corresponds to. I wonder how they assign 223 to like this blue.
The blue, because you're saying
What's
it's
the
theme.
underlying color theory? Why? Maybe I'll
Cool.
have a conversation with ChatGPT this afternoon.
Nice.
Learn a little color theory.
Goodbye productivity.
Cool, man. That was great. Loved it. I
Awesome.
can't wait to see what you put out there. But I'm also
The most basic gray
it could be a
apple.
game. You could machine train us, your users, and develop a black box algorithm based on people choosing which colors look best for different images.
Yeah. Also, too, if you work for Apple or know anyone that works for Apple and they care to
Shed some light.
shed some light. Also, I know it's when I find the answer, it's going to be like the most obvious. Like, oh, we just take the color, mix it with black, and
Right.
darken it by 10%. You know, something like that.
Just put like a black 50% opacity div
Yeah,
and
exactly.
do fill mode like invert, and then it's like perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool,
Also,
man.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh,
We'll cut this.
I was just gonna say I'm excited to try out the gradient stuff too, like sampling some of our images and seeing if we could do some cool stuff there. YouTube started doing this too. When you play a YouTube video, the background is like a delayed representation of like the pixels, but it works pretty well. I like it.
Yeah, they get a little glow behind the player, right? Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Very, very
Cool.
cool.
That was fun.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll have to use action state for next week. Hopefully, we'll learn a little bit more by then because we've been changing our understanding of it. Our understanding changes by the hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say whatever we say now, it'll be different next week. No,
There
I
you
feel really good. I feel really good about this hook. It's an amazing hook. But yes, we are in full learner mode with it.
Yes. Maybe if you have a video up, I know you're working on a video about it. We'll include it in the link
Cool.
because this should be out next week. So if that's up, then we'll put a link to that. Otherwise, we'll be talking about that next week. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.